So while you're going to have a data activity with the Vantage assignments for this module, I wanted to go over a couple of quick concepts. For example, life expectancy, which is a really informative data point. So life expectancy tells us about how long the average person in a population is expected to live, and it varies by the year that one is born and often the sex assigned at birth for that individual. Life expectancy is looking at a number of different environmental and biological factors that might be influenced by geographic location. So, for example, whether or not there is prenatal care that's available before a person even becomes pregnant or once they become pregnant, and what that accessibility is and what the quality is of that care, the availability of healthcare and how accessible and affordable it is, and again, quality as well. There are expectations for gender too when it comes to life expectancy because the normative behaviors vary when it comes to gender, like how risky those behaviors are, or even the acceptability of asking for help. And then when we look at some of the biological factors, there are predispositions related to genetics and biology, but a lot of that can actually be a bit complicated by epigenetics or by connections between biology and environmental factors, because our environments can definitely have huge impacts and influences over our biology and can activate paths in our bodies that might not have been activated in a different environment. So when we look at these populations around the world, in particular, like looking at uh, the patterns or connections between fertility rates and birthing rates and things like that, we see some things that are probably going to seem like common sense. So, for example, when you have a population that has a smaller number of children, then typically it's going to have a greater average age because children are going to bring that age level down. And so you'll see that when we see some of these populations that have a very like older or aging population, there could be increases and also their age because of medical technology advancements, right? And so if you combine those two factors, you're going to see some emerging social problems that can occur. If you don't have a lot of young people being born, but you have people living longer and longer, what's going to happen eventually, right? And how do we usually support our aging populations? And so, actually, you'll see in some nations that there are big pushes to get people to reproduce in order to financially support those aging populations. And so when we're looking at these life expectancy rates, when we're looking at this population data, we're usually looking at birth cohorts and comparing a group of people that was born in a certain period of time and that will likely experience the same events, have the same environmental influences in their lives. And that's where you start to get into those generational cohorts that we often throw around in our social media. Those have meanings beyond, like who's cool, who's not, who's to blame for this and who's to blame for that, right? They actually have meanings to looking at our population patterns and demography.